Hello, friends, and welcome to Thursday's edition of the Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. There is so much to discuss today. All the fallout from the Charlton, the limp, the turgid, the febrile loss to Charlton on Tuesday night. But we have to start, I guess, with the sexy stuff, which is always who's coming in, who's going to be next. And he's just zipping his top up there if you're hearing that on the audio. He's zipping his top up, ready to get right into this, Hutchie. It's just me and Hutchie today, Mark, Heath, Andy Warren. Ipswich Town's new manager. There's so many names being thrown around, Hutchie. Let's start with this today, shall we? I'm going to throw a few at you, and you bat them back. Do what you want with them. I'm going to start, first of all, with Neil Lennon. According to the Daily Record, on the shortlist at Ipswich Town, sounding out his old mate Paul Lambert about the job, excited to work with the new owners. Your thoughts on this, my friend?
Firstly, I'll apologise for the zip. I had too much of my wispy little chest hair was poking up over the top of the microphone, and nobody needed to see that. Neil Lennon. Paul Lambert used to talk about playing for big clubs, didn't he? Neil Lennon has managed big clubs. So he's obviously managed Celtic for 2 spells, load of trophies. Doesn't feel like a natural fit for the Ipswich job. But there's plenty of logic behind why he would potentially fit. He has been in English football before. At Bolton, didn't go so well for him there. Not surprised he's interested, but for me, it doesn't feel like the kind of appointment they're going to make. I would also question what the point is of sounding out Paul Lambert about the Ipswich job for him, other than what the area's like, because the club bears no resemblance to the one that Paul Lambert was sacked from in February. So I'm not in unless he wanted to know what Luke Wolfenden's like, or or whether Miles Kenlock should be brought back into the squad come January. There's not really much relevance in talking to Paul Lambert at the moment. Paul still lives down here, lives locally, so he could potentially be talking about, could I come and stay with you for a bit if I do get started. But I don't know. As much as you have to respect what he's achieved at Celtic and how big an atmosphere that is there and how much pressure comes with it, clearly he's been able to handle that and be successful. It doesn't feel right like one that they would potentially be looking to do anything serious with.
Okay, Hutch's view on Neil Lennon. Let us know what you think. Next one up is the one that everyone's getting excited about. Mick Mills was talking about Frank Lampard after the game. Apparently, I'm told on Tuesday, saying what a perfect fit he'd be for Town, what a perfect fit Town would be for him. Football Insider reported that Town have sounded Lampard out already. I will say at this point, usual disclaimer with these rumours, there's obviously going to be a lot of them, and you always have to consider the source and what their kind of end goal is. And with sites like Football Insider and Football League World and others like that, they are entirely built around page views, so they need to grab traffic, and thus it's not necessarily a surprise to see them pulling out the big names and linking them and doing stories about them. So just consider that, friends, when you look at these stories. So take it with a pinch of salt, I'm saying. But Frank Lampard, he's in the betting, therefore it's valid for us to talk about it. Hutchie, Stu's already told me it's utter nonsense. Frank Lampard is not going to come to Town. What do you think about Lampard? We've had this chat before when he was linked with the Norwich job. And I think your words to me, after that didn't work out, you said to me, I don't know what sort of job he thinks he's going to get.
Yeah.
So what do you make of Lampard and Ipswich Town?
Yeah, first off the bat, I think the kind of available evidence is that it's really unlikely, isn't it? I've just noticed what you're wearing, by the way. You've got your Paul Lambert policeman honey badger hoodie on.
Yes. Yeah.
Haven't seen that for a long time.
I thought I'd wear it today. It seemed apt.
Yeah, he's obviously he's turned down Ipswich as a championship club, but he's managed Derby as a very big spending championship club, and he's managed Chelsea, his club, in the Champions League before then turning down Norwich in the Premier League. So all of that evidence added together doesn't point to someone that's up for sort of 11th in League One. But I don't know what Mick Mills said on the radio after the game on Tuesday, but I had a fairly lengthy chat with Mick before the game, and we did talk about Frank Lampard, and I agreed with an awful lot of what he said, and it does link back to what I maybe said previously about not knowing where he needs to go. But because Frank Lampard's undoubtedly at a real crossroads in his managerial career, in that you don't know what he's looking for. Yes, he has managed Chelsea, but not to the extent that he's going to be getting another club of their magnitude. Is he going to want to go to, and I don't know if Mick used this example on the radio, but the example Mick Mills uses is he going to want to take the Southampton job, for example, because what is there to do at Southampton? Currently, Frank Lampard has nothing on his football CV other than having managed the two clubs that he's managed. Say he takes the Southampton job if that was available. The upper ceiling of that isn't to go and win the Champions League or winning cups and trophies, and he'll just be judged against other Southampton managers. Is that going to get him where he wants to go? Maybe not. Championship is a really difficult one. He's obviously had a go with Derby, a lot of money, didn't get it done. So I think Mick's logic is Ipswich a place to go to kickstart your managerial career? You will be backed, obviously. The ownership here has changed. It's not Marcus Evans who he rejected previously. Could you go to Ipswich and get what, for want of a better expression, you could kind of describe as a cheap promotion on your CV, and then just serve a bit of a reminder to people that actually, obviously that promotion is easier said than done. We have seen Paul Lambert and then we've seen Paul Cook try and get it and fail. Not that Paul Cook had a full season to try and do that, but if Frank Lampard could come to Ipswich, maybe not this season, given the state that it's in, and get a promotion, kickstart his career, get a promotion on his CV, does that change the view of Frank Lampard? Because I don't know. How do you see Frank Lampard right now?
Well,
when you look at him, what do you see?
I see a legendary player who hasn't really done a lot in management, and you would argue that has got those jobs because of his legendary playing career. I mean, he did all right at Derby. He would never have been Chelsea manager was he not called Frank Lampard. But everyone you speak to about Frank, he's a very intelligent young man, isn't he? Obviously, loves the game, knows a lot about the game, and importantly, I think for a job like Ipswich Town and the situation they're in at the moment, he immediately would command respect because of what he's done in the game. He's not walking into a dressing room where people are going to be going, "What do you know, mate?" The old Paul Hurst effect. Frank Lampard walks into a dressing room and tells you he wants this from you in League One. Who are you to argue? This is Frank Lampard. And that's part of, I think, what you need at Ipswich Town. Straight away, you need someone to be able to walk in that dressing room and command respect, and kind of rally the players around someone, this kind of leading figure in the dressing room. And I think he would have that straight away. Whether or not he's actually a good manager, I don't know. But I think there are certain elements of this job that would appeal to him.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly it's yes, Ipswich Town are in League One, but they're not really a League One club. And it's not really a League One setup. And in terms of the way Ipswich Town are regarded in the football pyramid, they're not, they're not like a League One. Ipswich Town are still a big, appealing football club. So it's not like he'd be going to manage Cheltenham in League One. It's Ipswich Town. And as you say, in theory, everything is here that a good young, or any manager, a good manager would come in. We've got the money, we've got the squad. This is ready made to go on the old Lambert, when it turns, it will turn, that kind of thing, to go on an excellent journey upwards through the leagues. Like you say, potentially a cheap promotion in League One, get into the Championship, then be competitive there with owners who are really passionate about being successful and want to get into the Premier League. And eventually, whoever comes in could feasibly be the man that turns Ipswich Town around and takes them back to the land of milk and honey, the Premier League, in 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. That's the perfect end goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if I can see that being appealing to someone like Frank Lampard.
It should be.
Yeah.
I would hope it is. But you do have to wonder. It's a difficult one for him, I can see, because you've managed Chelsea in the Champions League. It's a
risk. It's a risk because if he comes here and it doesn't work out and he goes the way of Paul Cook, then where do you go? You've just been kicked out of a League One club with loads of money and didn't get it done, adding to your list of managerial failures. Where do you go from there? So it's definitely a risk, but equally I can see there being an appeal.
Yeah, I can. I can too. I think it should interest him. Whether it does or not, I don't know. And I would also hope that Ipswich are what was the expression? Sounding out. I think that report said. Whether
Yeah.
we're happy with that report or not, again, I don't know. But I would hope they are sounding him out, because Mark Ashton is conducting, in his own words, an extensive manager search. So he can get to Frank Lampard. Of course he can. Mark's had ambitious kind of manager targets before at Bristol City, and I'd hope he's at least having those conversations. Whether they turn into kind of a mutual interest for anything to happen, I don't know. But from both parties, I think that there's absolutely enough there to have serious conversations about it. We'll see.
Shall we put Lampard in the bin, kind of more realistic / enticing than Neil Lennon at this stage, then, Hutchie?
I would say so. Yeah, from both sides, probably.
Okay, fine. So clearly, at the moment, there's a lot of rumours out there. It's not entirely clear who's applied for what. We do know, however, the next person has definitely put his hat into the ring because he's talked about it. A hero of Ipswich Town, famous for his swan's eye, Shefki Kuqi, Hutchie. We know he's in the mix because he told us. Your thoughts on this one?
Shefki's been looking for his first job in English football for several years now. Previously applied for the Town job in 2018 when Mick McCarthy left. Before Paul Hurst came, he full disclosure, I met Shefki around that time in a where were we? Some hotel somewhere fairly locally to here, and he gave me the full kind of spiel of what he would present to Marcus Evans, and it was impressive. It was impressive. The level of detail that he'd gone to. He had an interesting coaching team lined up at that point. There was one coach, I think his name was Jonathan Hill, who had previously been high up in Manchester United's academy. He was a highly regarded coach at Fulham at the time. That he was part of his coaching setup. Whether that's still the case, I don't know. I've not spoken to him this time around. There was a sort of a fitness guy who had worked with the late Kobe Bryant for a long time in kind of strength and conditioning wise. Finnish guy, I believe, was also ready to come. And I was impressed. I was impressed with what Shefki had to say, because anybody that saw him play would have seen a sort of a chaotic footballer who got the job done despite appearances. This is very much a case of substance over style with him. And you never know. I'd not met him previously. You don't know what to expect from people, but actually he's a very intelligent, very, very intense, thoughtful man who had got a real good plan together. Sadly, though, since then he's been linked with like League One and League Two jobs, but has got nothing in that time. He's not managed in that period. He'd previously managed in Finland, so for that reason, I'd be very surprised if that was one that was seriously entertained by Ipswich at this point, links or not, to the club previously. But as a manager, I would say he's got something to offer somebody somewhere at some point, and I'd love to see him get a chance to do that. I just don't think right now that's what Mark Ashton will be looking for.
Yeah, it's not happening at Town now, is it? You can see that being one for further down the line if he goes away and gets some experience somewhere else, maybe, and then has success and then comes into Ipswich Town as the former Town hero a bit further down the line, perhaps. I'm sure that would be a popular appointment, but he needs to get success first of all on his managerial CV before he comes somewhere like Town, I think. Should we talk about the betting odds, Hutchie? Because they're strange, aren't they?
Yeah,
up and down and all over the shop. At the moment, as it stands, Neil Harris is the favourite, with Mark Bircham second favourite. And we know Mr. Bircham was apparently at Charlton on Tuesday, making a bit of noise about it on Twitter, which I'm not sure is the activity of someone who is actually seriously in with a shout of getting the job. I'm not sure that's how you conduct yourself. What are your thoughts on the betting odds and Harris and Bircham and the like?
The betting odds are a funny one because at the best of times, it's a volatile sort of market where not an awful lot of, particularly on a market like Ipswich Town, not an awful lot of money is required to change those odds quite spectacularly. But on this occasion, it's even more so because very few bookies are actually running anything on it. And I thought it was only Bet Victor had any kind of odds whatsoever. You've told me this morning that William Hill have got involved as well, but don't take too much notice of the betting odds, I wouldn't say. But saying that, I think the current favourite on there is Neil Harris, and I would say that is a credible, if not kind of thrilling and enticing, it's certainly a credible option. He's got a promotion from League One on his CV with Millwall. He turned them, as we know, into a pretty solid, really quite solid Championship team that punched above their weight until he left that job. Went to Cardiff, took them to the playoffs in his first season, lost in the semis. Has obviously done it in the Championship as well. So I think he's one to certainly have in the credible option there. He's a good manager. He's got links to this area, I believe. Family ties to Woodbridge, so he will certainly have an interest in it. Was very interested when Paul Cook took it. So from his point of view, yes, I'm sure he's currently out of work, this job would be very inviting for him, certainly.
He's currently the favourite with both Bet Victor and William Hill, 4-5 on with William Hill, which is interesting. So the odds really quite short there. I have to say, if it is Neil Harris, and we don't know clearly, I'd be thoroughly underwhelmed, Hutchie. Is that unfair of me?
No, I don't think so. You go from we've talked about Frank Lampard to Neil Harris. It doesn't bring with it the same prestige, does it, in any way, shape or form? But Neil Harris does bring that League One Championship experience that
Maybe
people
that is
like.
Unfair.
Yeah, that people. Yeah, ultimately, you want a manager that's got the substance, haven't you? That's gonna deliver. And I kind of Lampard aside, there are no kind of thrilling candidates really at all. This isn't a glamour stakes, but maybe that's not what it needs. I don't know. It needs a solid pair of hands that's going to get this team playing properly. So I think Neil Harris could do that, but I do accept that he wouldn't be one that would set the pulses racing. He'd have to prove it from the off, wouldn't he? Whereas someone like Frank might at least would generate that buzz to kind of ride off at the start.
It's a terrible example, given how it turned out. But obviously, you compare the Lampard to Roy Keane, wouldn't you? When Roy Keane was appointed, remember how exciting that was. You know, literally a football icon coming into the club to be manager. He was going to shake it up. We were headed upwards. Clearly, it never really worked out. But you'd have that kind of Lampard effect, wouldn't you? Whereas with Harris, as you say, it would be like the Alan Partridge gift, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you'd have to twist some arms to kind of obviously the natural thing is you want to get behind whoever takes the Ipswich Town job, and people will get behind them. Of course they will. We would get behind them, of course. But it would be that little bit harder to do than Frank Lampard's Ipswich Town, wouldn't it?
Which is what it would be as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it would. I'm not hugely fond of that. It's
Wayne Rooney's Derby County.
It's not hugely helpful, is it? But yeah, I would definitely, if we're putting people in categories right now, I'd certainly put Neil Harris in the credible candidacy there, because he's a manager that's got some experience.
And as you say, maybe I am being unfair. I think.
No, I don't think so. I think that's just the natural reaction.
But as you say, he's got success, though, hasn't he? He's actually got success, which is something that people like Lampard haven't really got.
Yeah.
And so maybe it is unfair of me just to go, well, Neil Harris, it's not very sexy, is it? But everyone who listens to this knows I'm essentially a magpie, and I'm attracted to sexy, shiny things, and a bit shallow. So there you go. Hutchie, we've talked about some names there, and we talked obviously on Monday's pod about who you'd like to see, and we talked about Liam Manning and Stewie threw Anthony Barry and people like that into the mix, and we talked about Neil Warnock. Where do you sit at the moment with the type of manager that Town need? Clearly, when you say Liam Manning, you've gone young and hungry there, kind of someone who's got a lot of new ideas and that kind of stuff, and has done a lot of stuff that's kind of new and exciting. After seeing what you saw on Tuesday, and we'll come on to that in a minute, and the kind of clearly the players are in all over the shop at the moment, aren't there? There's some quotes from Edmondson after the game saying, you have to wonder what's going on with the manager situation. Clearly, the players are in shock still that Cook has been sacked. Has that changed anything about the way you think the sort of manager that Town need now? I.e., do they need, and you alluded to it slightly earlier, do they need someone to come in for the rest of the season and stick a few rockets up backsides, a la Neil Warnock? Or do you still think this is a job that someone like Liam Manning could come into and do well? Has anything changed?
I can see the logic in the first there in kind of the rockets, but for me, I wouldn't want to delay in starting what you see as being what's next, if that makes sense. If Mark Ashton's sitting there thinking, actually, we want a young, technical, forward-thinking, kind of innovative head coach to come in and start to kind of build, I don't see at this point. I don't see the need to delay that. If you can get the person that you want right now, I would still be going for that and just get started with what you want it to be next. And you know what? If the players as individuals aren't buying that, then they're probably not for you anyway. Because say you brought, just as example's sake, you brought in Neil Warnock now, I can completely see that Neil Warnock may well come in, really get his hands dirty and set those rockets up people and force a reaction. I can see that would happen, but Neil Warnock in his early 70s isn't your long-term play here. So for me, you're going to have to make that decision down the line anyway. You're still going to, just let's use Liam Manning as the example. Say you think you could get Liam Manning in the summer, then you're going to have to make that change anyway. Then there's the difference. If you don't think you can get Liam Manning until the summer, this is just an example, and you really, really think he's your man, then I could see that the short-term approach may be something that you go for, with a view to then getting the man you really want in the summer. But I'd be surprised if that's the way it turned out. For me, go and appoint the type of manager that you want right now, and don't delay them getting started, because we've had enough delays and false dawns here, haven't we? Let's just be clear with what we're doing and get started. That's where I'd be on it.
It's interesting in the poll that you put up with the original piece you did on Saturday night about potential candidates. Neil Warnock is still leading that in terms of voting.
Yeah.
So why do you think that is? Do you think that's very much a kind of, he'll come in, he'll slap, knock some heads together, and we might still have a chance of promotion this season? Is that the thinking there?
I guess so. I guess that's probably. I'm sure people voting in that poll haven't thought that Neil Warnock is the big future for Ipswich Town. He's going to lead us to the Premier League. But in terms of short-term fix, there's always an intrigue factor about Neil Warnock. Just like just to see what he would be like managing your club, leading your club. So I guess that's maybe where that's come from, and maybe also that actually a realization that Ipswich are mid-table in League One, and that some of the other candidates aren't particularly exciting, like Neil Harris, for example. I don't know the percentage of voting that he got in that, but I can't imagine it's hugely high. And there are a number of characters in that sort of piece, that original piece. I think there are 18 in there that a lot of them aren't. They're not going to get your pulses racing because they're League One football managers. Maybe Neil Warnock was just that. Seems ridiculous to say about a 73-year-old or whatever he is, but maybe he's just got that X factor. I watched a 50-minute documentary about Neil Warnock last night on YouTube, just called Warnock. Yeah, just while I was tidying the kitchen, I had it on. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't. No. Was it good?
Yes, it was really good. It was really good. Quite clearly produced at the request of Neil Warnock. It was very much a look at let's see how good let's show everyone how great I am. Piece. It's from like 2004 kind of time. There are some very funny moments in it. I recommend watching it. There's one moment where at the very beginning he talks about, this is a massive tangent. Are you okay if I keep going
Of
with this?
course, yeah.
So there's one moment at the very beginning where he talks about kind of his dressing room superstitions and his rituals, which by the sounds of things he's got quite a lot of them. And one of those things is that he lets the team go out onto the pitch, or sends all of his coaches out at the start of the game as well, but then hangs the complete opposite to Paul Cook, who goes out first. Neil Warnock then stays in the dressing room to have a couple of minutes to himself. And, and he lists the things that he does in there. And he just says, have a little think, have a bit of a rest, think about my family, then pop to the toilet, and then just goes, I don't do anything untoward. There's nothing untoward in there. and then he just goes out again. He's a fascinating guy. I'd recommend that if you've got Neil Warnock on the brain, just type in Warnock documentary into YouTube. It's quite funny.
We should also stress, because there will be people going, Andy's watching documentaries about Neil Warnock. He must know something.
No.
It's not Hutchie seeking an insight into the next Ipswich Town manager. It's just because that's what sort of thing you like watching. Fair enough.
I also it was discussed quite heavily on another football podcast I listened to, which I'm sure lots of people listen to that also listen to us, the Quickly Kevin podcast. They watched it and talked about it recently, which I listened to on the way home from Charlton on Tuesday night. So yeah, I've had a lot of Neil Warnock, but it's not in any relation to the Ipswich job whatsoever. I just find him fascinating.
Do you know how I see Neil Warnock's, if it does come to pass that he comes in, how his reign would be at Ipswich Town? Do you remember that advert where the grown man goes around slapping people in his garden?
Yep.
It was something, I can't remember what it was for now, but that's how I see Neil Warnock's approach to the town job. Just wandering around giving backhanders to people. We shall see. Watch this space, and obviously we'll continue to report rumours, etc., that we think are credible, and hopefully bring you the latest on the manager search. On that note, before we move on to Charlton, Hutchie, you got a chance to sit down with Mark Ashton on Monday. We couldn't really talk about it on Monday. We knew it was going to happen. What was your main takeaway from that? How was he? Tell us a little bit about it.
Busy. A hive of activity up at the training ground on Monday. But my big takeaway from it was quite clearly how this genuinely is a manager search. And I genuinely think there's some sifting, some sorting, some interviewing to be done. It's not a case of, clearly now it's Thursday. Paul Cook was sacked on Saturday. It's come to pass in those days since that clearly it is a manager search. There's not someone lined up. It's not a quick transition, which in modern football, obviously you see that an awful lot, that one manager's gone and the other one's in within 48 hours. This is a real manager search. They are taking CVs. They are talking to people. He says he's going to meet a lot of people in person to discuss this, to see the whites of their eyes and kind of get a real feel for them, which is obviously a very sensible way to do it. But yeah, that was the big thing for me on Monday, that part of me did wonder whether there would be someone unveiled really quite quickly. There hasn't been, and I don't think there will be. So looking more and more like John McGreal is quite clearly going to be taking the team to Wigan at the weekend. So it's going to be into next week, I'd have thought, before a new manager appears.
At the earliest.
Yeah, at the earliest, yes. It's not. I wouldn't say it's set in stone that there's going to be a new man for the Sunderland game. I would hope that they're getting close to something by then. But I wouldn't say that's a given at this point. They're gonna get this one. They're gonna get this one right. I think in their mind, they're gonna take their time, have time to breathe. Is what Mark's expression was. We're gonna take time to breathe on this, and then look to appoint the man they think is the right one to lead the club forward.
Okay, that's the perfect segue then in terms of McGreal to talk about what happened on Tuesday night, Hutchie. The start of the John McGreal era did not go well.
No.
Fairly inauspicious start. I think that would be kind to say. Where do you want to start with this, Hutchie? Because there's clearly one major thing we have to talk about, which is the ugly scenes. after the game. Do you want to start with that?
Yeah. Let's start there, because that kind of feeds back into everything that we saw during the game, doesn't it? That wasn't good. That felt quite dark, quite depressing. If I'm completely honest, I'm sure everyone's kind of seen the videos by this point, or at least read about what's happened. So I don't think we need to go into huge detail about that, other than to just say that it's just not good, is it? It's a really bad sign, one that you don't want to associate with Ipswich Town, but is not great at all. I don't really know what else to say about it, to be honest.
It just makes me sad, Hutchie, that we've what is it, 30? I think it's 37 days now sitting here today since Town beat Wigan 4-1 away, and everything seemed hunky dory, and now we're sitting here talking about fans and players having confrontations after games. And in terms of clearly everyone now has a video camera on their phone, so it's everywhere. You see a lot of the national papers reporting horrible scenes connected to Ipswich Town.
Yeah,
that's just not good, and it adds to the atmosphere around it. I will say that I understand the emotion of the fans, especially this close to Christmas. A trip to Charlton, you're probably not going to get much change out of £100, are you?
No.
In terms of a day out there, so I can understand the emotion. I will say that a fan who steps onto the pitch and pushes a player, absolutely no place for that whatsoever. And Christian Walton showed tremendous restraint, because if someone comes up to me and pushes me, that's not how I'm going to react. So he actually kind of steps back, doesn't he, as opposed to lumping the fella, which would have made things even worse. But clearly, horrible things to see anyway. And we don't want to see that going forward.
Yeah, I think a lengthy football ban is probably incoming, and fully deserved for that individual in particular. The one that went on the pitch, that was that was awful, and not representative of the Ipswich Town fan base in any way whatsoever. The thousands of all 3,000 fans there would have felt thoroughly miserable about what they'd just seen on the pitch. But quite honestly, you're a moron if your reaction to that is to go on the pitch and do that, and that is not representative of the thousands of supporters that spend a lot of time and money travelling to give the team the best away support in the division, and up there with anything in the country. Which they
do tremendously, don't they? And as you say, that the guy who went off the pitch will hopefully feel the full force of any sort of ban that can be handed to him. Toto has obviously come out and said sorry yesterday, which is only right. So should we talk about why there was so much anger, which is the game itself? And moving on from that, people in the game day video, which Ross did afterwards, which is definitely worth a watch, by the way, especially if you want to watch a man almost spontaneously combust, Tom Bloomfield. I mean you, which I admire. Again, passion is fantastic if it's channeled in the right way. He said it was the worst display of the season, and a lot of people have said that. Completely pathetic, an absolute disgrace. And you were handing out threes in your player ratings, Hutchie. Only Christian Walton emerged with any credit from the game. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, that was the print version of the player ratings, mate. They between the time I send them to you, full disclosure, they have to hit quite a tight deadline with those. There might have been another one dropped a little bit further than that. I'll be honest, given a bit more time to think. We'll get onto that in a minute. But whether this was the worst display of the season or not, I don't know. But if you put it up against the backdrop of what you really wanted to see from the team in this game, it was really poor. Like, you wanted to see fire in the bellies. You wanted to see at the a reaction. Fair enough. John McGreal's had an hour with them on the training pitch. You might not expect to see a well-oiled, polished machine that's out there perfectly swatting Charlton aside. But what the very least you want to see is a team that realise and accept they've not been good enough for their previous manager, which has resulted in him losing their job. And then coming out onto the pitch and giving everything they have to show that they are better footballers than they've been showing recently. But they didn't do that. And like you say, Christian Walton is the only one that comes out of that game with any kind of credit whatsoever, because he stopped that being 4 or 5-0. So thoroughly depressing to watch. Just the lack of anything really, the lack of reaction, the lack of substance, the lack of drive, the lack of a desire to prove people wrong. On the night where you want to see it, they lacked it in any capacity whatsoever. It was very disappointing.
Should we talk a bit about the team? Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
McGreal's first Ipswich Town team in interim charge. Fair to say he didn't change a lot. I was pleased to see KVY and Donatian at the fullback spots. That would seem to be a fairly obvious change, and we know he's a big fan of KVY. What did you make of the rest of the team? The 4-2-3-1, sticking with that kind of thing?
Yeah, I said on Monday I wasn't expecting the wheel to be reinvented because John has used those systems previously. The players have been trained rigidly in it for months, so to suddenly go away from that system in its entirety on the back of an hour on the training pitch might not have been hugely sensible. The tweaks were there, like you say. Vincent Young at right back surprised me a little out of the two because John McGreal had success with Kane as the left back, and Janoy struggled at left back positionally a little bit. I think he caught himself very narrow at times, and I think it was him that was playing onside for the first goal. I would have had them the other way round. I'd be interested to see if there's a switch for Wigan this weekend with them. But I thought Kane did okay out of the rest. He had some moments getting forward. Janoy not so much from the left flank. I would be swapping them back, I think. But away from that, it was the side in many ways I expected. Really good to see Edmondson back in, and he's one that had a better performance than some of the others. But yeah, the attacking three just didn't really function. Like at times, I looked at it and thought that Scott Fraser was kind of tucking in a bit more into more of a 4-3-3. But it's those differences between that and a 4-2-3-1 are so subtle they're not even worth discussing. But they just didn't. The midfield just had nothing against the busy, physical, energized Charlton midfield. The Ipswich one is the root of the problem in this game, and they just never got going. Bond didn't have a sniff up front. Got caught offside whenever he did try to get a sniff of anything. Just didn't function. And after a 20-minute period where they looked okay at the start, they came out, got on the ball. Fraser got on the ball quite a lot in the first 20 minutes, and I thought, you know what, he could be their route to goal again tonight. But after that 20 minutes, it faded away. First goal for Charlton, nothing in response. So pretty lifeless.
They're still missing the boy third degree, aren't they? Macaulay Bond's
Yeah.
boy, Wes Burns.
Yeah, just an outlet, isn't he? He's pace, he's intense. You talk about maybe like the rest of the team lacking an identity. Wes Burns doesn't. Like, I think whatever football team you put Wes Burns in, he's gonna play the same way, whether it comes off or not. There will be times where it doesn't. We've seen games where it doesn't for him, but he's direct, he's quick, and that's what he's going to do for you. And they are missing him, I think.
Who was the player that dropped in the official print ratings?
Sam Morsey.
He dropped because he was a 3, I think, in print. Yeah. So he dropped to a 2, did he?
Yeah, some caveats in there, and I don't think he was hugely worse than anybody else on the pitch. But that man's the captain of the team. That sort of Kylie Minogue vibe of player ratings on the night where you want to see the captain leading from the front and really putting the foot down and driving something into his team and driving his team forward. It just wasn't there. I was very disappointed in Morsey's performance on Tuesday night. You want so much more from your captain in the really tough moments. Fair enough. You're going to have bad games. You're going to have games where you're not on it. You're not on the ball. You're giving away passes. It's going to happen. However, he seemed to lack kind of the basic drive and will to lead that team. And that was really disappointing because they needed those players to stand up for them. John McGreal needed those players to stand up for them big time on the night, and it didn't happen.
Worsley's an interesting one, isn't he? Because of all the players that Cook brought to the club, you'd say he is the Paul Cook player.
Yeah.
Brought in to be the captain. Essentially, thought he was coming here for a one season tour of League One, lead the team up, and clearly it's not working out for him. So you do wonder where his head's at now. The manager he loves, who brought him to the club's gone. The club are struggling in the middle of League One. Promotion looks increasingly a long shot this season. Interesting, very interesting with Sam Morsy. And hopefully he'll turn it around because he strikes me as a sort of character who is a combative, kind of wanting to prove people wrong sort of guy. So fingers crossed we see better from him. After the game, Hutchie, I think it was you who spoke to Edmonton, wasn't it, after the game?
Technically, no, actually. Nobody from our newspaper spoke to George Edmondson because he arrived incredibly quickly. My mobile phone was within about 12 inches of George Edmondson because I was still finishing off to the player ratings to hit the newspaper deadline. So I sat at the back with my laptop on and just left my phone running on the table while Brennan Woolley spoke to him. So George Edmondson did speak, but and I was in the room, but sadly newspaper deadlines meant I was not involved in the conversation.
There you go, then, people. Another peek behind the glamour.
There you go.
Of football.
There you go.
The reason I mention it is because he made mention of essentially a player lock-in after the game. Where they exchanged some full and frank words of discussion amongst themselves. Can you tell me more about that? I mean, that is a good thing, I think, to see players doing stuff like that, taking it on themselves to say, we've not been good enough. This isn't acceptable no matter what's happened. Thoughts?
Yeah, it sounds like John McGreal was just asking a few questions of the players about why. Where are you guys at? Why has this just happened? And it's the players' responsibility to kind of, like I was saying with Sam Morsy, really just to stand up and show how good they are, because we know they're good football players and their CVs, most of them all say they certainly shouldn't be in a mid-table League One football team, but that's exactly where they are. And as much as a new manager is needed to pull this all together and start Town moving in the right direction again, the players are going to need to do that as well. Like, are these the right players to buy into a new manager? I hope so, because that would be very expensive if they're not. But in the short term, it's the players that needed to. John McGreal had an hour with them on Monday morning before they got on the bus to go to Charlton. The players needed to deliver something. I'm not saying they needed to win. But obviously that's what we wanted, but they needed to deliver something for him. They didn't do that. They've now got a really tough game at Wigan on Saturday, where they need to deliver again, and they need to find something within themselves. I don't think it's fair and reasonable at this point to assume that John McGreal can all of a sudden in a couple. He'll still all out. I assume they were off yesterday, which means they'll have a training session today, Thursday, travel on Friday, probably train again, maybe somewhere on the way on Friday, if not train at Playford Road before travelling up. So he'll have 2 sessions with them again before Wigan, a big game. So it's the players that have got to do this. The players have got to find something within themselves to get this football club moving forward again before a new man comes in to really start the plan and get going on something new. But you just want so much more from the players, don't you? Because they've all accepted that they needed to do more in it, and that they let their previous manager down. You've seen loads of them sort of either through interview or social media accept publicly that the players let Paul Cook down and they didn't deliver what was needed, and that's got to come from within. You can't be a professional football player, and as much as we look at managers and we want managers to build these players up and give them something extra, you want to give them that extra, top them up that extra 10% just to make them something more than they are. But you can't be a professional footballer and not find that fire in yourself and desire. So come on, guys, find something. And I'm glad they spoke about it.
Yeah, There you go. Come on, guys, find something. It's that professional pride, isn't it? No matter what situation you're in, as a professional football player, you should be wanting to, give everything for the cause, sort of thing. And I think there are a few things that irritate fans more than hollow words, and we've had a lot of those at Ipswich Town over the years.
Yeah,
players saying we'll give everything, and then not really giving everything.
I wouldn't put George Edmondson in that boat, by the way. I like George Edmondson a lot. My great fear is that the way this season is going, that you end up losing the mind of someone like George Edmondson. Like they've come from Rangers, big old club, to Ipswich to be part of something that they've been enthused to be a part of, but don't go losing players like that. Don't lose their hearts. Don't lose their minds. He needs to be someone they build around for years and years. In my opinion, he could be. He could go through levels with Ipswich. I just fear that you lose him. You waste a year of Bersant Salina loan. You waste a year of being able to have someone like Christian Walton in goal for you.
Yeah.
And you never know. You might even waste a year of Macaulay Bonne. So this really important, a really important appointment now, just to get this thing moving, get this ship moving forward again, and just find something positive, because it was really quite a miserable evening on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, Edmondson, you'd say someone who could potentially be captain material, Hutchie, perhaps.
It's someone he would be someone I'd be looking at if that was a fresh slate there.
Wigan this weekend, then, Andy. This is a game that really worries me because Wigan are, flying, high flying. They've got a manager who had a good relationship with Paul Cook, who I'm sure will be wanting to stick it to Town even more this weekend now, and prove them wrong for getting rid of his mate. And it's a Town side that are in disarray. So for me, everything on paper says another quite humbling experience for Ipswich Town. Am I wrong?
No, I'm in the exact same. I'm in the same place that you are, right there. It'll be a braver person than I to sort of travel to this game expecting anything. Football has a way of surprising. You never know. Because the players are good enough to beat Wigan. That they are good enough to do it. But it's going to be quite the response will be required from what we saw on Tuesday night if they're going to be able to do that on this particular occasion.
What can McGreal do to try and shake things up? Your partner in crime, who's not around today, has had a day off. I think he was pretty sleepy after Charlton. He told me he got into bed at 4 a.m. On Wednesday morning. He's written something about 5 players who could change or help change Town's fortunes at Wigan, topped by a certain Mr. Norwood, who you spoke to Mark Ashton about on Monday. Should we talk a little bit about that and some things that McGreal could do, players that you could bring in? What would you like to see? That type of vibe.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I agree with a fair few of those. Norwood's an interesting one. I asked Mark Ashton on Monday, quite just very straight. Is John McGreal free to pick James Norwood to play for Ipswich Town should he wish? And the reply was 100% yes. So I think it's notable that he's kind of started to work his way back into match action. He's been playing and scoring for the under-23s in the last couple of weeks, and he is a striker, a player who, whenever he's on the pitch, sometimes too much, but he always comes with kind of some inner hype that he's up for it, and I think he would be very up for this game. Just to get on the pitch for Ipswich Town again. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. We've obviously spoken in depth about his situation and the club being unhappy with some things and the fact he's on the transfer list. But you know what? In a time of need, maybe he's someone to turn to. Idris El Mizouni on that list interests me a lot. Stu's got him as second as of the players to potentially come into the side, and I would back that one for for energy reasons. He brings some energy to midfield, a bit of drive, a bit of no fear. So he would be one I'd be looking at, but that would involve potentially dropping one of Morsey and Evans against their former club. Both put in performances on Tuesday night that certainly doesn't make them immune from being dropped. But to do that is a big call, particularly with Morsey. So that remains to be seen. If Wes Burns could reappear, he's the one of all of them that could potentially reignite something. So if he could reappear, that would give me a little shot of a booster jab of optimism. But we don't know if he's available. Selena as well, potentially. Should he be available? We'll find out a bit more about that today, hopefully.
Okay, Hutchie. So I want your team. What are you doing? So you obviously you're sticking with Walton. You're sticking with the fullbacks. Are you taking Toto out of the frying pan for a bit after what happened?
You need to see where his head's at. That's an internal call. Footballing wise, I'm not going to rush towards Cameron Burgess. I would have Luke Wolfenden ahead of Burgess in a pecking order for me. So if Toto's head's not completely there, which it may well not be after that on Tuesday night, that's tough for Toto to take. I can imagine that's something that isn't hugely easy to deal with and just process straight away. So it may be that maybe go Wolfenden and Edmondson with. I'd switch the two fullbacks around as well and go Janoy at right back and Vincent Young at left back. I'd put Idris into. I'm gonna line this up in a 4-2-3-1 again. By the way, I know there's a lot of debate about that, but that's just what we're gonna do right now. I'll go El Mizouni, and I will go with Sam Morsey again, in the real hope that you've got a real message to him over the last few days back at his former club. I'd pair those two. I'd hope that Wes Burns is available to play on the right. I would hope that Bertrand Selena is available to play at the 10, and I would put Connor Chaplin into the team as well. So I would, if all things being well, I would change the entire three behind the striker. Tempted to go with Joe Pigott.
That's interesting.
This might be the day. Not with any strength of feeling. I'm not desperate for Macaulay Bond to be dropped, but something fresh. Or James Norwood.
Now that would be a statement, wouldn't it?
I can't see it. I can't see him jumping ahead of both of them. I can't see that. I can see him being on the bench. And
he absolutely is, as you say, though, the sort of character you'd want in this sort of game, isn't he? I know,
on the pitch, yeah,
in terms of baggage and background and stuff. But Town are in a kind of beggars can't be choosers sort of situation now. And if you've got a player who can bring that fire, which he definitely does, the energy that he does. I mean, you get the feeling if Norwood played on Saturday, he'd either score or get sent off.
Or ping his hamstring because he's given far too much. Something would happen. I don't think you'd get a quiet 90 minutes out of James. Something would happen. I can't see him jumping ahead of Bon and Pigott to start a game. But part of me thinks Joe Pigott might be the way to go for this game.
Interesting. And you're starting there, Chaplin on the left, are you, ahead of Edwards? Is that?
Yeah.
Edwards
But him and Selena, I feel him and Selena are fairly interchangeable. I'd probably actually start with Selena on the left and Chaplin as the 10.
And the 10.
Chaplin as the 10. But they're fairly interchangeable for me in those two positions. But if they're fit, that is with Chaplin and Burns, we don't know. Maybe we might get some more answers from John McGreal on this one, just to know where those guys are.
But we need to see something, don't we? Even if Town don't come away with a win or even a point, then we need to see some sort of fight, reaction, willingness to put it all on the line, sort of thing, don't we? So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you for a prediction because I think we both have a bad feeling about this one. But let's hope we can predict some sort of reaction from Town. Hutchie, I haven't asked you about this in pre-production, so I don't know if you've got one. But £1 million picks would normally be in play for this game.
Yeah.
Have you got anything?
I don't want to bet.
You can't bet on Town to lose
against Ipswich.
No.
Am I allowed to back a Wigan player to score a goal in this game?
It's your money, mate.
Yeah, I'm just going to look up the odd. I'll be honest, I haven't got anything prepared. But I think Will Keane is going to score for Wigan in this game because he is.
That would fit.
He is playing. I think he's enjoying. It's fair to say he is enjoying himself at the moment. I'll just look up the odds for that. I think Will Keane may find the net. He's playing as a bit of a number 10, withdrawn up top, and yeah, I think he. Where's my £1 million picks little file gone? I can't even remember how much is in the pot. I've got that little care about my my huge amount of money. 800 grand is in there at the moment. Will Keane to score any time is 2-1. So let's go £50,000, £100,000, £100,000 returns 300. So would put me back on the square million if he scores.
Okay, so something to look forward to there.
Yeah.
All right then, there's your £1 million pick. Will Keane to score. Is he in scoring form? Hutch, you say he's having fun. I don't really know the stats.
He is scoring goals on a consistent basis. He's I'll just look up how many he's on for the season, but he is scoring goals and he's contributing. We know he's got that deft touch that can bring others. He's got 9 for the season so far.
Wow. Okay.
So he's pushing Macaulay Bond levels, isn't it? He hasn't scored in his last 2, but has scored 3 in the 3 league. What a goal each in the 3 league games preceding that. And during that time, he's become a full international as well. He's now a Republic of Ireland international in the last couple of months. So he played against Cristiano Ronaldo for Ireland, I believe, in the last international window. So yeah, he's in a good place.
Nice. Has he still got the ponytail?
Yeah, little man bun, I believe. Yeah, I think he's still rocking that. So good luck to him.
It's inevitable, isn't it, that he's going to score on Saturday? Sadly, I think you're probably going to be reaping some cash there. Just before we head off today, in terms of the Wigan stats and lineups and stuff, keep an eye out for Ross Hall's Meet the Opposition bit that he does every week. It's really good. He speaks to either a fan or a journalist who covers the opposing side, talks about players to watch, how they're going to line up, the kind of story of the season so far. It's really good watching. So keep an eye out for that, and obviously keep an eye out for the fan social, which will be out at some point tomorrow, Friday. And that's going to be a lively one, no doubt, after everything that's happened. Hutchie, any other business before we take our leave and I do my usual rambling, shambolic outro?
Other than just to note that as of about an hour ago, Jack Ross is on the market, been sacked by Hibs. Ooh. We've talked about him before. My gut reaction is that might actually be something that Neil Lennon would maybe be drawn to a little bit more than it. He's been there before. He has been there before, but he's also been at Celtic before. So I think he went Celtic, Hibs, Celtic, back to Hibs. But he was one, wasn't he? He was the other one that made the final 2 before Paul Hurst got the job. So he actually started really, really well at Hibs. So I'll be honest, I don't follow their fortunes hugely closely, but I know they started incredibly well under him. So things must have gone pretty bad.
Things didn't really work out for either those two, did they, Hurst or Ross?
No, they did work out for the other men. The other man that was interviewed that never really gets talked about is obviously Lampard was one, and Graham Potter was the other, who of those 4 has certainly done incredibly well for himself.
Familiar story. Right then, friends. Thanks for listening today. Do leave us a 5-star review on iTunes again, because it helps us get more listeners, get more people subscribing, helps us visibility wise in the charts. We've had 3 new ones, which is great since we last spoke. So much appreciated. And if you do enjoy the show, do leave us a 5-star review. That's great. Follow us across all the social medias on Kings of Anglia, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And also remember to support our sponsor, Manscaped. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery on everything on their website. Particularly useful whether you're looking for yourself or Christmas gifts as we're coming up to the festive season. Probably in the festive season now, I think it's fair to say. And there we go. There's another KOA pod in the bag. Once again, lots to talk about. We've thrown some names around. We've talked about the fallout from Charlton, and we've also talked with some trepidation about the trip to Wigan. Hopefully we're wrong. Hopefully we do see something which brings back points from Wigan this weekend. Time will tell. Enjoy your weekend, whatever you're doing, and we'll speak to you again next time.